Deep video alert. Deep video.
It's gonna be a deep video, boys.
Oh yeah, it's a deep one.
Hey Virginians. So at first I wanted to talk about Made in Abyss, but my god, there was a lot of questionable content regarding children in that anime, and I feel like I brought up weird underage sexualization already in my recent Devilman Crybaby video. And way back in Violet Evergarden, so fuck it. We're going back to some classic anime. I'm talking anime that have stood the test of time for decades now, shaped some of the fundamental tropes of this artistic medium. You already know I'm talking about Coraline and The Matrix. Two strong contenders for anime of the year since 1756 and counting. I read the manga for these two and everything, so you know that everything I say in this video is 100% real life. It's actually interesting to me that these two anime have such ruthlessly combative fan bases that will literally end each other's lives and brutally murder one another's families, considering how the two shows are rather similar in their animation, character design, and of course, theme. That theme being escapism. What does escapism mean to you? Maybe you think of concrete and observable behaviors. Video games, listening to music, mid-tier anime, scrolling on YouTube or social media for hours, looking for that last video before you start your work at 2:47 a.m. Substance abuse or meaningless sex to feel like you're a more charismatic and confident person that is liked and admired by your peers and parents instead of seen as a disgusting, pitiful stain that is slowly drinking and coking yourself to an early demise because you can't seem to commit to anything or develop healthy habits for dealing with feelings of self-loathing, and sometimes that 9mm barrel just tastes a little bit too sweet. Or maybe it's just something simple like daydreaming and imagining yourself 2 to 3 years in the future when you've obviously got everything figured out and live a fulfilling life and you no longer wish you'd never been born. Regardless, I feel that all forms of escapism inherently hinge on a desire to be separated from one's current circumstance. I don't want to be here, so I won't be.
Take me away, Chris Pratt. Meaningless sex with you is all I have left.
Of course, you can make everything sound great if you describe it like that. After hearing my sales pitch, don't you desperately want to indulge in your escapist fantasies? Well, let's use The Matrix and Coraline to get a more nuanced perspective. Coraline's escape is fairly straightforward. Plopped into a dreary gray deluge surrounded by crackheads and also lacking attention from her parents, Coraline craves both a change in her physical environment, but also in how she is positioned within that ecosystem. Her prayers are answered as she enters a world that is constructed to assuage her every misfortune. The world is vibrant and bursting with unpredictable beauty and entertainment. At every turn, her physical environment is improved, from crackheads to Coachella, from boredom to benzos. But more importantly, her position within this environment is drastically different. She is the center of attention. The world and all of its facets are focused entirely on meeting her desires and appealing to her. In this way, her escape is a direct improvement upon the inadequacies of her normal life. By comparison, The Matrix leaves a little more room for interpretation. Choosing to view The Matrix as the fantasy, one might come to the conclusion that escapism is a universal human affliction, one that, while preferable to the catacombs of Zion, ultimately acts to keep humans from reaching their full potential despite providing a sense of security. Through a less cynical lens, one might view The Matrix as a fantasy to be understood, appreciated, and conquered. While it is not glorified, escapism seems to be shown as something that teaches, a trial that is overcome, for the child to become the bigger child. And on the flip side, one might view The Matrix as the real world, whereas Zion becomes the fantasy, a realm in desperate need of a hero like you, who has been chosen for great things despite your mundane and formulaic life confined to a cubicle. You will save humanity, get the girl, inspire school shooter drip for generations, and be remembered as Jesus, the sequel, with remastered crucifixion included. Regardless of the world, both of these stories display the nature of escapism and its role in one's life through how the main characters interact with their escapist fantasies. The fantasy is an extension of you. Coraline's other world would have no shape without her. It was made with her in mind, and it directly improves upon her world's inadequacies, her parents, her neighbors, her world. The Matrix similarly is constructed to be routine, regular, contrasting with the cruel reality of Zion, where every decision a human makes could end the existence of the entire species. The Matrix is a safe haven, where one need not fear such responsibility. In this sense, we construct the very worlds that we know will trap us. We provide the blueprints, wireframe, materials, and constraints to our limitless imaginations, building universes and cosmologies made entirely to ensnare ourselves. In the same way, our antagonists and conflicts are an extension of our insecurities and environmental sources of inadequacy. They are the personification of our fantasies, and ultimately reflections of self. The beldam, like Coraline, enjoys games, hanging her entire world on a treasure hunt, which was one of the first games Coraline suggested to her own parents for entertainment. Agent Smith,
Hello, Mr. Anderson.
just as Neo seeks reprieve and a sense of autonomy from the overbearing uncanniness of the Matrix, Agent Smith also seeks to find control, meaning, truth. However, where we find separation from our antagonists is in what they ask of us. Become a part of our world. And thus they must collapse. Not because there is anything wrong with being a part of a collective, but because for Coraline and Neo, the fantasy is about finding fulfillment in individual value. Because Coraline wants to be seen and loved, and Neo wants to matter. The idea of sacrificing one's individuality is sacrilege to the notion of fantasy. Whether you imagine yourself as the chosen one, protecting humanity's final bastion with all your might, or you want your dad to be ruthlessly and viciously topped by a piano, ultimately, your fantasies rely on the notion that you have value in the world. Enough value to be important. Enough value to be loved. Enough value to be happy. You might be saying to yourself, get to the fucking point, you doo-doo cock-up piece of shit. You're an animal. Your fantasies ask you to be a part of them, to be consumed by them. It's a pretty common sentiment these days, to stop fantasizing about what you want and to just put in effort to attain your goals, which isn't inherently a bad thing, but it's been turned up to an unachievable extreme.
Do it now.
How you fixating on why you suck mad ass
right now.
Fuck my wife.
And that's not the point I'm trying to make. Trust me, officer. There's no Sigma shenanigans going on here. We're all just beta cucks. The point is that you shouldn't just ignore yourself. Coraline and the Matrix present escapism as a reflection of you, and ultimately a part of your humanity meant to be mastered. Your feelings of inadequacy, what you desire both physically and intrinsically, your sources of insecurity, shouldn't be cast aside or rebuked, but understood. What does escape mean to you, and why? Where do you go when you can't be here? And who do you need to be to stay? Moral of the story, please quit cocaine. Holy
Jeez
fuck.
Louise.